Hello everyone and welcome back guys to round 13 of our F1 2020 My Team Career Mode Season 2, where today we're here back ready for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Obviously if you missed out yesterday's video from the British Grand Prix, I would definitely recommend going back and checking that one out. But heading to the Hungaroring this weekend, we've had a couple more upgrades on the car now. You can see we have had another aero upgrade on, and we've also now got another chassis upgrade in the works. Now, moving into this weekend, I have also set up the new barge board upgrades. We have the best aerodynamic kit now in Formula 1 anyway, so hopefully that is going to be rather useful in the second half of this season. Once we've got the fuel tank positioning upgrade, we should have the best chassis in Formula 1 as well. And then the powertrain side of things, we're still a little bit behind Ferrari and Mercedes, but what can I do? You know, we're trying to save some money at the moment to unlock the last few powertrain upgrades for the car. So before we head into this weekend, that serves as a good reminder that we'll see if we can get the last facility upgrade on to try and get us up to level 3. So increase fabrication capacity to a maximum of 3 simultaneous developments for 5 million quid. But we are going to go for that one. So that should be done by the 9th of August. Obviously, after this weekend's Grand Prix, we have got the summer break. So hopefully we can finish the first half of the season on a bit of a high and move on into the summer. Having a look, though, quickly, before we jump into that, I think the next upgrade we'll be trying to do, though, is the front wing turning vanes on the aero side as well. Heading into our ERS management tests, I've just sort of realised how important this qualifying session, this free practice session, could be for the second half of our season. Obviously, we need to try and get as many R&D points as possible here, because if we can get an extra upgrade on the car before the summer break, that's a free upgrade ready for the second half of the season that then we don't need to worry about. So we do need to try and absolutely nail every single practice program at the moment and just try to score as many points as we can before we head off for our break. So, free practice done and dusted then, and it's going to be about 950 points. Is going to leave us very, very close to the R&D total that we need. Is it going to be enough, however, for one final upgrade before the summer break? So we unfortunately miss out by 50 R&D points on it being able to get the extra front wing turning vanes upgrade on the car there. I don't think we'll have enough to go for a chassis upgrade either, not a major one anyway. No, we're 20 points short of that, so we are actually going to have to go with a powertrain upgrade, the first one we've made in quite a while. We will go with the energy recovery system rotor speed upgrade then for 1,300 R&D points. It won't even be ready before the Belgian Grand Prix, so that's not exactly ideal, I'll be honest, but we'll get that on the car then ready to go. We've got 28 R&D points in the books for the first time in a very long time. We've got one upgrade on 3 separate departments here. Should give us a big advantage over Mercedes, but we've still got to try and score good, consistent points. Let's dive into qualifying then here in Hungary. So, lesson learned then from last week at Silverstone. We are certainly just not going to try anything fancy here in Q1. We're just going to try and get straight through into Q2. We've got 10 minutes on the clock. Let's try and just get a nice tidy first lap in, and hopefully it'll give us a rough idea of where we need to be. We need to be aiming for a mid-13, I think, in all honesty. This is once again a good hunting ground for the AI, but hopefully not quite as ridiculously OP as Silverstone. Coming down into Sector 3, certainly the AI's strongest sector on this track. Let's see if we can try and get a lap hooked up and see where it'll put us then through the final corner. Just struggling a bit with the understeer. The tyre's already starting to go off after just one lap. It's going to be a 14.2. We lost almost a second in that final sector. Once again, coming down into Sector 3. Let's see if we can try and find a little bit more time than we were able to on our last run. We are going to find another couple of tenths. One more corner to go. Try and just avoid the understeer this time round. There we go. That really has helped us out. It's going to be a 13.6, I think, in the end there. That should be us comfortably into Q2. P6. We'll take it. That's all right. Q1 done and dusted, then you can see it is a Bottas on a 12.9. That's just insane from the AI around here. Yeah, Bottas the first man then to get under the 1 minute 13s, albeit only just, but a sub 113 is a sub 113 at the end of the day there. George having a good job done in P3 there, with Ferrari seeming to be sort of filling that bubble between myself and George over 1 lap pace there. Charles Leclerc once again able to get absolutely everything out of that Alfa Romeo in 7th there, and you can see Perez, Albon, not out in Q1. Who'd have thought it? What a miracle. Red Bull starting to turn it around this season, it appears. But out in Q1, though, however, is Magnussen, Kvyat, the 2 F2 joiners to the Formula 1 calendar at the start of the season, Matsushita and Nick de Vries, and then, of course, the 2 Williams cars as well. They're not so far off the likes of Nick de Vries and Matsushita this weekend, but still a long way to go for them as well in Formula 1. Let's dive into Q2 and see if we can hook up another lap. So here we are then in Q2. We are only going to get 1 shot at a lap here, so we need to try and keep it nice and tidy, but we're going to need, again, about the same time as we set in Q1 if we want to be into Q3 nice and tidy there. So a mid to high 13 is what we're going to be looking at here. Let's just see if down in towards turn 1, a bit of a lock-up, but we get the power down on the exit there. Just getting a little bit squirrely through the first couple of corners, down into the second hairpin. Just roll on the power as early as possible there. It does feel so satisfying to get this first sector hooked up in a Formula 1 car there. Down into turn 4, just dropping it down 1 gear. They're using up all of the exit curb. The FIA are letting you get away with that this weekend, and we've survived the first half of the lap in towards the far more technical half, though. A lot of curb abuse, I'll be honest. We probably, we're a bit lucky to get away with that there, but down in through the second half of Sector 2, just trying to keep it nice and tidy there. Down into Sector 3, we're a good half a second up on Esteban Ocon, but we just need to try and keep it clean and tidy as we head in towards the final couple of corners here. Back down in second gear for the penultimate corner. 1 more to go, then keep it nice and tidy through the final turn. Avoid the front end washing out. Try and be sensible on the throttle. DRS activated, and it's going to be another 13.6. P6 again. Good. We're consistent. There's no denying that. 2 1 minute 13.6s has brought us nicely into Q3 then. It was George up in, well, fastest in Q2. They're on a 13.0. Bottas couldn't quite get the lap hooked up this time around, but I think the first time this year, or maybe, well, first time in quite a few races at the very least, that we've seen both Red Bulls into Q3 there. Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, as well as ourselves, both Mercedes and Ferraris there. So only 6 teams into Q3, but let's see if we can try and get maybe ahead of Vettel. He's done a couple of 13.6s as well. Maybe P5, P4 if someone else makes a bit of a mistake. We get 1 more shot at this. Let's not mess it up. Here we go then, ready for our 1 and only Q3 run here, with sweat mode is probably going to be needed if we want to try and find another 10th or 2 in this final session. We want to be looking at a 13.5 at the very least, just to see what is possible this weekend. Through turn 1, nice and tidily, roll on the power, easy on the exit. That's exactly what we like to see. Down in towards turn 2, using up a little bit of the entry curve. Hasn't allowed us to get the car to the apex, but you don't need to quite clip it through that second corner, as long as you can keep a bit of momentum around the outside. Up into turn 4. A lot of curb there again, but like I said, the FIA are allowing you to get away with that this weekend off the exit. Not the best run through the chicane, just a little bit too much oversteer as we try to find the limits. That's been awful through the second part of the S's as well, though. We're now just trying to catch up a bit of lost ground as we head down into Sector 3. Keep it tidy, keep it clean. Oh, I dig the grass on the way into the final corner. Certainly won't have helped us out. A lot of understeer on the exit as well. We got a bit impatient in the end and it's cost us. It really has cost us at the end of the day. There is that P10 on the grid. No, P8. Not quite where we wanted to be, but considering the mistakes, I'm honestly quite happy with that in the end there. That means...
qualifying complete. Let's review our top 3 today. Hamilton, Bottas and George Russell. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
There really was a good opportunity there to get ourselves onto the second row of the grid with our teammate George Russell, but Hamilton and Bottas down in the 1-minute 12s when qualifying is all wrapped up there. But it's Hamilton on pole, ahead of his teammate George Russell after his very first podium last time out, is on the second row once again there. Ricciardo in fourth ahead of Verstappen, Albon, Perez, myself. We did end up beating Charles Leclerc, but can't help but feel like there was a lot more on the table. If we can get up into fourth early on, we might be in for, hopefully, a decent points consolidating race. Let's dive into it then here for the Hungarian Grand Prix.
It's race day in Budapest as we get ready for another round of the Formula One World Championship. We don't expect too many retirements at this track. There are plenty of current and former drivers with flawless finish rates here. In particular, Ralf Schumacher. He made it across the line in all 10 of his Hungarian Grand Prix starts. Located 12 miles northeast of the Hungarian capital Budapest, the 14 corners of the Hungaro Ring are steeped in history and prestige. Overtaking has always been difficult on this technical 2.7-mile circuit, but the last few years in particular have turned up some exceptional races. Let's hope we're in for another one here today. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn one. So how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
Well, the throttle goes both ways, Crofty. You've got to have the discipline not to try and win the race on the first lap. So always be prepared to lift early and give those around you more space. Trying to be the last of the late breakers with half a dozen cars around you may pay off from time to time, but it's also a great way to lose your front wing.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Ricciardo, Max Verstappen, and Albon, Perez, Mr. Monaco, Vettel, and Charles Leclerc, Sainz, Stroll, Esteban Ocon, and Norris, Gasly, Raikkonen, Kevin Magnussen, and Daniel Kvyat, Matsushita, De Vries, King, and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out. Then let's see who can prevail today.
Now that we've got some points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
I'm not even going to comment on Jeff saying that every week. I think, to be honest, the talking point heading into this race is Crofty saying the accelerator pedal goes both ways. I don't see it ever going backwards, I'll be honest, but hey-ho, we won't worry about that all too much. Getting ready, though, for the Hungarian Grand Prix. We're really not going to need much spare fuel in the car for this weekend. 35.5 laps should do us about right, but it is looking obviously like a 2-stop strategy this weekend. It was the 1 stop that really did help us out in last year's race. Obviously, the safety car came out after Hamilton, who dominated all weekend, had a late race retirement there, which almost cost him the World Championship at the end of the day as well. But in terms of our strategy, though, we're just going to go softs, mediums, take them as far as possible, see if we can get some softs to the flag. Maybe it'll work, maybe we'll have to change it up, depending on what happens, of course, in this race. But I'm ready then on the grid for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Make sure, obviously, if you guys are as well, you subscribe and leave a like, and let's dive right into it then. Here for round 13 of the year from the Hungarian Grand Prix. It is 5 red lights and it's lights out, and away we go. Off to a good little start, actually, as we head down towards turn 1. We've got Perez on the outside, Albon on the inside. As we head into the first corner, we'll have a look up the inside of Albon in the end, just braking a little bit early, so we'll pounce on that opportunity. So straight up 1 spot then off the start of this Grand Prix, up into 7th place there. So it's a, yeah, good little getaway for ourselves. It finally appears that Red Bull are back, as George up the road has managed to split the Mercedes. Things you love to see at the start of a Grand Prix. Down into Sector 2 though. Just trying to settle down into a rhythm. Maybe there's an opportunity to go for something on Sergio Perez here. Into the chicane. No real opportunities there. To try anything cheeky. We're too far towards the front of the field, so no one's bunched up enough. We've kept it clean though. Let's see if we can apply some pressure. trying to put the power down onto lap 2. We are still closing up to the back of Perez, and then just top-end speed. He's just got a little bit more than ourselves at the moment. Maybe our aero kit is too good at the moment in Formula 1.
Charge is hard. Let's use that overtake button more.
Coming on to lap 4, though, we seem to be under a lot more pressure from Albon behind us than we're able to apply to Sergio just up the road. That's definitely not going to help as we head through the first corner. Albon, holy moly, come on, keep it in a straight line. Don't need that, that won't help us. We're back down to where we started this race then. We are really, really struggling on this set of the soft compounded tyres. I'm honestly tempted to pit early onto a set of the mediums and hope we can get a bit of an undercut maybe on the cars around us. You know what, we're going to go for it. Pitting on to a set of the mediums at the end of lap 4. We should be able to take 2 sets of mediums, 15 laps apiece in this Grand Prix as we get the car slowed down into the pits. Can you tell it's rather warm in the UK when I'm recording this as well? I feel like an absolute sweaty mess, and we've only done 4 laps so far in this Grand Prix, but hopefully we'll come out in some good, clear traffic. I've noticed just a couple of other people have pit already, Norris and Raikkonen. As we butcher the pit stop ever so slightly there. We are going to clout in a lot of free air though. We've got about 7 seconds to Williams in front of us, which should be at least sort of 2-3 laps. Let's get our head down and focus. Got a few more drivers then starting to dive into the pits. I'm hoping all of them get caught behind the Williams because it's very much going to be an issue for us in the next couple of laps here. I don't know which of the Red Bulls pit. It is Albon, so he was behind us. And we've managed to keep it... No, sorry, he did just get past us, didn't he? Before we pit in. So we have kept the Red Bull then behind us overall. And we've got about a second over him as well, which is nice to see. So maybe a bit of an undercut is working for us here. However, only 2.6 now behind the Williams. I can't imagine it's going to be long before we're trying to get round them.
George is going in for his stop.
So George then into the pit lane. As our current teammate dives it in, we are right all over the back now of our former teammate in through the final couple of corners. Hopefully, we should get a rough idea of where we are in comparison to George in this Grand Prix. We've kept the gap to Albon at about the same over the course of this lap as we just get a little bit loose through the final corner there. We've got DRS though, but unfortunately so does everyone else around us at the moment. One of the Red Bulls is coming out the pit lane, so we've got past Ricciardo. So we've actually done quite well in this, but now we've got to try and get around all this traffic. Down of the first corner, we are still definitely closing in on our teammate Jordan Kings. We're going to try and look around the outside through turn 2. The Williams, obviously nowhere near the same sort of grip levels that we've got, and we've done it. Past our former teammate, but now we don't really want to be sat behind his current teammate of Latifi. Down in through sector 2, around the outside of the other Williams. Can we hook this up perhaps? He's given us the room around the outside much later on the brakes, and we've done it. Past both Williams, then around the outside. End of lap 8, all over the back now of Nick de Vries. Once again, shouldn't need to sit behind him for all too long in this Grand Prix. We don't get the run out the final corner, however. So he is going to gain a little bit on us down in towards turn 1. We're going to have to go full send almost into the back of Matsushita. A very aggressive move, a bit of contact on the exit of the first corner as we tried to put the power down. But we're back up into the top 10. We did get a warning for that, however, not too surprised. But Verstappen just in front on a set of the hards, so perhaps we're seeing some split strategies here. I don't know what our teammates gone on to. Unless, of course, they're going to have to make a second stop anyway. Matsushita now right in front of us as we head through turn 5. He's going to go defensive up into turn 6. Can we do what we did to Latifi? Oh, he runs into us. And Matsushita's dropped it. Don't think there was really much we could have done there. I think he got too deep on the brakes and we couldn't avoid him. But Matsushita then spins round. Not a good moment for the Japanese driver. Of lap 10, though, I must admit, all these slower cars in the way really helping us out at the moment as our teammate George Russell's trying to look up the inside of the Haas. Hamilton's already got round Magnussen. Bottas now, I'm sure, is going to be trying to get past him as well. But it's helping us a lot. We've taken about 2 seconds out of Verstappen and co on the last lap. Magnussen's going to get jumped by Bottas, however, though. But Verstappen shouldn't be able to get round him as we head down into sector 2 again.
Rain is forecast in just over 10 minutes time. Rain in 10 minutes.
Jeff just coming over the radio then, warning us that there is meant to be some rain coming in about 10 minutes time in this Grand Prix. We had no news of that all weekend until now, but Magnussen going a bit defensive on Verstappen as we head down in through turn 1. We need to try and get past the Ferrari man on his hard compounded tyres, because, well, that really could make the difference this weekend for him if he can get to the rain when we can't, but running way too deep through turn 2. A little bit of wheel spin off the exit. We're going to try and slingshot our way past K-Mag up in towards turn 4. You can't move across in the braking zone, mate. And K-Mag, because of that, bails out rather early in very not K-Mag fashion in the end, but we are round him. We're only a couple of seconds behind Bottas and our teammate George. Now we must wait until the rain of lap 14, and we've really closed up the gap to Hamilton, Russell and Bottas at the moment. It seems like Pierre Gasly is a bit of a cork in the bottle at the moment, as that's not really the line out of the final corner. That's a fair warning, I can understand that. But yeah, we've still got one of the Racing Points and the Renaults up the road who have stayed out from the start of this Grand Prix. Maybe for the second week running, those two teams can get helped out by either changeable conditions or a safety car here, but we're just trying to keep our head down at the moment, seeing if there's anywhere Bottas is weak. Genuinely might be the first time all series we've had a proper all-out dogfight between both Mercedes and both 212 Motorsport cars, as we get very loose at the final corner. They're trying to activate the DRS just a little bit earlier, and I think the back end wanted us to there, but Hamilton can't seem to get past Pierre Gasly. Oh, how we've known that story far too well this season as well. I've just noticed as well, as we run into the back of Bottas, the yellow flag's out. I was going to say Russell is actually on a set of hard compound tyres relative to the two Mercs and ourselves around him, so he's done quite well in the first half of this race. Kvyat's pit safety car's been deployed, it's all kicking off all at once there, so it's been a bit interesting. I don't know if Hamilton... Yes, Hamilton has got round the safety car. So the team now saying 5 minutes until rainfall is expected then around the Hungaroring. The real question is, A, when actually will it arrive? Jeff can be a little bit inaccurate with his timings on F1 2020, and B, just how quickly will it fall? So it is going to be very, very interesting to see on the restart. We've got safety car, which is shaking up the grid ever so slightly, bunched us all back up together. We've got different strats going on. Russell, this could work out really well for him, or completely screw him in this race as well here, depending on what our teammate opts to do. And then also, yeah, what is the rain going to do in this race as well? End of lap 19, safety car is going to be coming in at the end of this one. We need these tyres just to try and hang on a few more laps to see if it gets wet enough here. Otherwise, we might have to try and just guess our strategy to the end of the Grand Prix. But out of the final couple of corners then, we're going to try and go slow in, fast out. Like I said earlier on, it's a bit of a dogfight now between Mercedes and 212 Motorsports here. So let's see what happens. Down in towards turn 1. Nowhere near close enough to go for a move on Valtteri Bottas. Mercedes haven't been in this position all too many times in this series, where they've got a team that can really, really threaten them with both cars still in the mix. But let's see if today we can get on top. Ooh, Hamilton then into the pits at the end of lap 20. So clearly Mercedes aren't actually happy with those mediums. Bottas gets very, very loose out of the final corner as well there. So a very, very weird strategy call coming out from Mercedes then. I'm guessing they're hoping the rain doesn't end up arriving in this Grand Prix, and they can try and get a bit of an undercut on ourselves, Bottas and George Russell here. But, I mean, George could be looking to try and get to the end of this race. I'm really not too sure just how many laps those hards are capable of. But bearing in mind, remember, we pit about 3 laps earlier than Lewis did at the start of the race. And our tyres aren't looking too bad yet. Now, we need the rain to come, as George Russell, for the second week running, leads this Grand Prix. There we go. There's the flash. The rain is now here, so what we now need it to do is start falling rather quickly. Bottas has opted to stay out another lap here, so yeah, really not too sure what Mercedes are thinking at the moment with Hamilton, but this could really shake things up in the final few laps of this Grand Prix. DRS has been enabled, but how long will it remain that way before it gets disabled again for a 2-damper circuit? can already feel these tyres not quite in the best shape at the moment. I think Bottas and I are probably at a bit of a disadvantage at the moment, as our tyres are definitely going off a lot more than the hards. The team's saying 10 minutes though only of this rain, so it is meant to be getting dry again before the end of this race. So are we never actually going to need the full wet tyres, or the intermediate, sorry, I should say anyway here? More and more questions being raised. 12 laps to go. Tiptoe around this circuit at the moment, but we have got a bit of a run this time round on Valtteri Bottas as we head down in towards turn 1. That'll be why then. Valtteri Bottas has a bit of an issue with his car as we get a bit squirrely out of turn 1. We're running the horrible gamble at the moment as we try to have a look around the outside through turn 2. Can we make this move work out of nowhere? Yes, we can. Got the inside for turn 3. We're around the outside of Bottas in the struggling Mercedes, but up into second place behind our teammate. What is the strat? The team's still saying the normal race, but let's have a look at weather report.
ETA on this rain clearing up is about 10 minutes, so just keep your concentration out there. Not sure whether dries or inters are faster. We're right on the crossover.
Right on the crossover, so I think what we're going to do is if George pits in this lap, we'll stay out. If George doesn't pit in, we'll come in on to set the inters and see if we can make up the delta over the course of a few laps here. But I think for the first time this season, we have got a very, very strong chance, probably the only other chance we've had since the Chinese Grand Prix, of a potential 1-2. There we go. DRS has now been disabled as we are just locking up all over the place through the final couple of corners. A few of the backmarker AI have dived it in. George is going to do the same, but we are now going to have to follow him in. He's understeering into the pit lane here. This is just crazy at the moment as we try to get the power down into the pits. It's all kicking off here for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Everyone is just skating around here. We're probably going to get undercut by a couple of the AI unless Bottas gets held up behind some slower traffic, which I think he has done. He's been held up by the Renault, but we're still going to lose a lot more time as we wait for George to get out of the way. If he doesn't win this race now, I'm going to be absolutely gutted. Both Vettel and Ocon have gone past us. We are going to be back down in about P6 of this Grand Prix. Behind Ocon, behind Verstappen, behind our teammate, and one of the Red Bulls, I think, has opted to stay out for whatever reason. All over the back of Esteban Ocon pretty much instantly at the end of lap 25. Whichever Red Bull, decided to stay out has really lost a lot of time in the process as we try to get round the Frenchman here through the final couple of corners. Around the outside through the final corner. No, we'll try and get the cut back on him. Out of the final turn. There we go. We just about get it hooked up at the end. Well, up the inside, Albon was the man who opted to stay out. He's going to basically be out at the rear of the field now. But let's see. With Bottas still struggling, Verstappen can't seem to get round him. Maybe we can get ourselves back up into P2. 26, Bottas is clearly still struggling with that car at the moment, but Verstappen doesn't seem to have the confidence to get round him, so we've got to try and pounce whilst opportunities like this open up, because who knows when Bottas will have a smooth running car once again here in this Grand Prix. We're into third place. Hopefully we can sneak into P2 rather quickly here as well through the final corner. Try and get the power down. A lot of wheel spin out of the final turn. Bottas, though, he's going to try and go defensive on us. Down in towards turn 1. We'll switch back to the outside. Daniel Ricciardo style. Maybe we can get the move. No, Bottas defends from us just about through the first corner. We'll try and get the power down around the outside once again. This time round, we get the traction. We have the inside for turn 2. Just nice and calmly on the brakes. And we should now be up into second place once again at this Grand Prix. George has got a good 5-second margin up the road, however. Could we hold on for the team's first 1-2? Already by the end of lap 27, we've taken over a second out of our teammate George Russell at the moment. We are flying on these intermediate tyres. The car has just absolutely come alive when the track started to get a little bit slippery here. So maybe this race isn't done and dusted just yet. The rain, however, is definitely getting lighter as well. So we might have to go back onto dries before this is done. Oh, DRS now has suddenly been re-enabled as we head on to lap 30. Is the track going to get dry enough to go on to another set of the dries, though? I can't see anyone pitting at the moment. One of the Ferraris is into the pits as we head on to lap 30. The other thing is, if the track doesn't dry out all too much, It might be quicker on the drives, but is it worth losing a pit stop's margin and potentially getting caught in traffic? Few cars have dived it in, but there are still so many questions in this race. End of lap 30, we're surely going to have to dive it in at the end of this one. It's not worth the risk trying to drag these tyres to the end. Normally I consider it, but the fact that George is doing so well as well this weekend, I think we probably ought to be trying to bring home the 1-2. So George is going to dive it in. We are probably going to lose out a bit of time again through the pit stop window. But we got a bit of a gap to Bottas behind us this time round. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can stay out ahead of him. One of the Racing Points has opted to hang on out there at the moment. I'm not too sure who that is. Let's just wait and see. Perez is going to try and go one more lap on those intermediate tyres. Hopefully we don't lose out too much time. There's the Mercedes. We're going to come out behind him once again. Another 4.2 second stop. And we're back out then in current P4. But the guys that opted to pit one lap earlier have definitely gained a lot out of this as well. Can we try and get back past Bottas and make this 1-2 a reality still? Unless, of course, Sergio Perez can pull off a miracle. But then end of lap 31, Perez is now diming it in. Bottas seems to be all over the road in that Mercedes just in front of us. I can see him fishtailing around the track at the moment, but can we try and get past him nonetheless? As the track gets drier and drier, surely Bottas will become a bit more consistent again in that car. Remember, obviously, he is our main title rival at the moment as well, so we do need to try and take some good points out of him this weekend as we run a little bit deep through turn 2. We'll probably have to wait another lap now. Bottas seems to be settling back down into a good, quick rhythm at the moment, so we do need to try and get past him as soon as possible here, because I don't know how many opportunities we're going to get in the last 3 laps of this Grand Prix. George, though, 6 seconds up the road at the moment. I don't want to speak too soon, though, because he has been so unlucky on so many occasions throughout the entirety of this series. But yeah, let's just focus on trying to get round Bottas if we can. George, new fast lap of the Grand Prix, a 16.6 as we head at the final corner onto the penultimate lap. We're 6 tenths slower than that at the moment. This race really has just been up and down for ourselves at the moment, but we're just losing a bit of ground to Bottas as we make a big lock-up through turn 1. I'm not optimistic at the moment. We might just have to try and bring home P3 and lose another 3 points to Bottas in the championship. Towards the final lap of this Hungarian Grand Prix, I just don't think we've got enough in it to try and close up to Bottas here. George has set a 15.4 now, so he is still setting up the timing screens lap after lap. We're on a 17.0. On the other hand, we have now run out of ERS on that lap as well, which certainly didn't help us out, but one more lap to go then before George Russell, for the very first time in Formula 1, could become a Grand Prix winner. He'll be the 3rd driver this year in just 13 races to pick up his first win in Formula 1. I don't genuinely know when the last time that would have happened in a real Formula 1 season where 3 drivers pick up their first win of their careers, but I'm sure one of you does know down in the comments below. I'm guessing it would have probably been the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s. Yeah, just don't know for sure. Could have been 2008, actually, saying that. But in towards the final couple of corners, it was Sergio Perez back at the Canadian Grand Prix. Esteban Ocon last time out won at Silverstone. But through the final couple of corners, Britain's next big hope in Formula 1, George Russell, is going to come through to finally take home his first race victory. He spent so long in the back marker Williams, but we gave him a shot, and he is now a Grand Prix winner. George Russell, fastest lap as well to finish off the day. Bottas is going to come through for P2, but we're going to make it the first double podium for 212 Motorsport in Formula 1. Now we can fight.
Can't complain about that one. That was an excellent drive.
Can't fault the performance on the track today. A well-deserved victory. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
Well, they played the safety car to absolute perfection. There are so many factors to worry about once the race is neutralised. I mean, do you pit for fresh rubber? Do you have the space behind you? How much fuel can you save? If you answer all of those questions correctly, you'll have a good chance. And that's exactly what happened today.
The faces on our top three look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all. And after this round of the World Championship, here's how things look in the drivers' table. More points for Valtteri Bottas, further solidifying his lead at the top of the table. Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for driver of the day?
I'll probably go for Pierre Gasly. The team did a good job with the strategy to put him in amongst the pack, but it's the driver's job to capitalise on those opportunities, and he did so with a lot of skill.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Well, that was certainly an incredible weekend of racing. Be sure to join myself and Ant for more exciting Formula One action soon.
So there we are then, guys, the end of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and George Russell finally picks up his very first F1 win there. I'm sure he is very, very happy with that. It has been a long time coming, and he certainly deserves it as well. They're the three-stop strategy coming out by everyone in the top 10. But Lando Norris, who managed to make a four-stop work in this weekend's race, just goes to show how insane it really was this weekend there. Bottas splits the 212 Motorsport cars to continue building up his title lead at the moment there. Vettel finishes just behind us in P4 there, with Ocon doing a fantastic job from 13th to 5th. Ricciardo drops down in the end to 6th place, but I'm sure Red Bull are just trying to pick up good points where they can at the moment there, finishing just ahead of Pierre Gasly. Verstappen, Stroll and Norris rounding out the top 10 there. Sainz just missed out on points. Nick de Vries, his best result of the season, if I'm not mistaken, but still not quite good enough to get his Haas car into the scoring positions there. Ahead of Charles Leclerc, Perez, Raikkonen, Hamilton. The Hungaroring so far in this series has just not played into his hands at the moment there. The second time in a row he's not scored points. The same can be said for Alex Albon, who obviously, if you remember last year, had a very late race DNF as well there. Matsushita, Magnussen, and then the two Williams round out the finishes there, with Danny Kvyat the only one not to get to the flag there. But championship-wise, 38 back now from Valtteri Bottas as Verstappen now gets past Lewis Hamilton there. So we've got 34-point margin over Max Verstappen, 36 over Lewis Hamilton at the moment. So we're basically as close to Bottas as those guys are to ourselves. George, though, moves himself up into P8, the things you love to see. He probably should be looking at sort of P6, P7, P5, P6 at the end of the season there. But Charles Leclerc, Danny Kvyat and Stroll get moved down the order. Ricciardo rejumps Albon for 13th, and then Pierre Gasly gets more points on the board and makes sure he moves himself up into 17th place overall there. With Nick de Vries jumping Latifi at the rear of the field, still obviously on 0 points there, taking that on countback. But constructors-wise, though, we're now just 11 points off Ferrari at the moment. We've got 98 over Racing Point behind us as well. So the battle for P2 in the Constructors' Championship is definitely on. We've had 8 different winners from 5 different teams in the opening 13 rounds of the season here. It has been what a start to the year it has been. But F1 now heads on to its summer break. Luckily for you guys, that will be over tomorrow, where we will be back ready for the Belgian Grand Prix from the infamous Spa-Francorchamps. You guys do not want to miss it. A big thank you to our channel members for making these videos possible. You can be featured in these end clips as well as granted access to some other exclusive perks for just £1 a month by clicking the join button below.